Bonjour mes spectateurs, ça va? Welcome back to the Busy Linguist, where today I'm going to give you learners of French, especially beginners, my top 5 best tips of how I started learning French, why I started learning French, and the resources that I used and found really useful as a beginner. So when I was 12, I absolutely fell in love with the French language. I started this project where I decided, hey, let's teach myself French. And the first thing that I did, and this is the first thing that I also recommend anyone learning French to do, is to really immerse yourself in the language. And I know I mention this so often, but literally the first thing that I did was I went to my school library, and back then I was in year 7, so I was still in primary school, and I started reading it by looking at the words, looking up the meanings of the words in the dictionary, and writing out the sentences, trying to create my own sentences, obviously after I had learned some grammar, but we'll get to that. And I also started watching films like Amélie and films with Gérard Depardieu, and also with having subtitles so that I could match up obviously what they were saying. And I found this is really, really important because before you even start learning grammar, before you start learning vocabulary, you need to have a feel for the language because ultimately you're going to be speaking the language. And with French, it's also another thing. The pronunciation is something that a lot of people find difficult because you have things like liaison, you have things like words that are pronounced pretty much the same, you have different tones of e, u. So it's super important to first build up your comprehension and your vocabulary, and this is going to help you later on when it comes to speaking on your own. And so in order to do this, what I did was I got a phrase book. So I don't have my French phrase book on me, and I'll pop one in the video right here, which I used, but literally any phrase book, like a travel phrase book that you might find in your library. And this is the one that I use for Italian, for example, so something like this, because it has simple sentences and vocabulary that you need in everyday life, and that's a really good place to start. So starting with basics like bonjour, ça va, comment allez-vous, bien merci, mal, and etc. etc. So starting with the basic phrases. So every language learner does have their own approach on where they start and how they start, but grammar, I can tell you now, is something that you do need to look at, but it's not the very first thing. So when it comes to grammar, I would start by learning verbs like être and avoir, and learning the present tense. Where you might start with grammar is learning phrases, for example, with like j'ai faim, je viens de Adélaïde, je viens de Allemagne. So talking about yourself. And as you might have just noticed, I said j'ai faim, which means I'm hungry, because in French you use the verb to have when you're talking about how many years you essentially have, so how old you are. Or if you are hungry, like you're saying I have hunger. And it's also when you say things like I'm cold, j'ai froid, not I am, je suis, but I have cold. So it's important that you start by learning those phrases and not by directly translating from your native language to your target language, because that just does not work, trust me. So as I said, I learned a lot of vocabulary and phrases first. And one way that I did this was I would take topics that were relevant to me. So you'd start with, say, basic phrases, as I mentioned. Then I went on to learning things like food and just writing down phrases that I would get from the things that I immersed myself in. So music and movies and TV shows and just anything, literally anything. Podcasts are also really, really good. So there's French Pod 101, which I can definitely recommend for beginners because you can also kind of suit it to your life. So the things that you really want to learn first in terms of like topics, they have a whole variety there and I can definitely recommend it. And so what I would then do is when you're learning vocabulary, use sticky notes. Now I've got a video about how I learn using sticky notes and post-it notes, and I will link that right here. Yeah, so literally just take sticky notes and I would write down any new vocabulary and I would stick it on my wall, or even better, stick it on the items if they are in your room, for example. So say 1 week you're learning about your bedroom, about your kitchen, numbers, etc, etc. I would make it really, really visual and have it somewhere where you can see it every day. So getting on to grammar, things that I would focus on learning first, as I mentioned, are verbs like être and avoir, so to be and to have, because you will need those when it comes to learning other tenses later, so the past tense and the plus que parfait, and we won't worry about those just yet. So definitely learn those first. What else I would do would be look up the most common French verbs that come up. So these would be like faire, mettre, aller, and so on. Ones that you would use quite often in your life. And I remember when I started learning French, my teacher told me to invest in a good dictionary, but I think these days with phones, there are so many dictionary options and they are a lot more convenient than paper dictionaries, which are just way too heavy to carry around. So the dictionary that I have for French on my phone is LINGUIST. So this is what LINGUIST looks like. I really hope that it focuses right now. And LINGUIST comes in all different languages, and why I love LINGUIST is because when you translate the word, it'll have the pronunciation quite often, and it also comes up with lots of examples of where the word is used. And I always recommend learning within context. Like, never learn words or just verbs on their own because you just won't know how to use them. So this is my français folder, and what I can definitely recommend, so when it comes to really drilling things in, whatever it may be, into your brain and being able to remember them, repetition is super important. And especially when you have things like apps on your phone, you can do grammar drills and practice vocabulary any time of the day, anywhere you are. And so I would always have a French conjugation thingy-majiggy. I would always have a French conjugation app where I can practice, French conjugation. And on my phone, I have a few of those, and I hope you can see them. So I'll link all the names to the apps below. But yeah, they're really awesome. And back to verbs, there are three sort of types of verbs in French. You have the RE ending verbs, IR ending verbs, and ER ending verbs. So right at the beginning, learn the conjugations for je, tu, il, est, nous, vous, etc. Drill those into your head, practice those through doing grammar exercises and stuff, because it just makes your life easier, guys. Trust me. And especially if you're doing a French language course, I can definitely recommend this grammar book, and it literally has every single French verb in there, and it is so good. Like, this is what helped me through French, all through high school, all through university, and I'll just show you what it looks like. So it has the present tense, past tense, pluperfect, imperfect, etc., all the tenses, and some examples. And I find whenever you see examples in books, your brain will actually pick up the sentences and where they're used, and you just learn so much more than you think when you're just reading stuff. So last thing, practicing pronunciation. Now I know pronunciation is one of the things that every single French learner struggles with, including myself. And the best way to practice this is by doing listening exercises, and lots of them. So all of my teachers always drilled into us the importance of the phonetics, so listening and identifying the different sounds in French. I will also put some links of where you can practice those. So listening to lots of podcasts is also really good. French Pod 101 is definitely a resource I can recommend because they have texts as well as the listening, and they'll also make you repeat a lot, which is crucial for wanting to improve your pronunciation. So listening to native speakers and then repeating and getting your mouth used to making all the different sounds, because in French they are just so varied and so different, and I still struggle sometimes with getting the sounds right. So yeah. And of course, don't forget to have fun. So use resources that you enjoy, that keep you interested in the language, because at the end of the day, it should be fun. And if you're looking at topics that you enjoy learning about, say if you're interested in cooking, you might look up French recipes, or if you like movies, you might get into French film. Really getting in touch with the culture and linking your interests into it and enjoying the journey, because that's what it's all about. Alors merci beaucoup pour votre attention, and I will see you soon.
À tout à l'heure.